Hi, I'm Natasha Michette, the CEO of the Prep Institute, and we are blessed to have this contract with the County of San Diego to offer continuous business training to both small nonprofits as well as small businesses, those that are in the BIPOC community, as well as focused on serving the BIPOC community. So over the next couple of months, you'll get exciting opportunities to learn new skills for business growth. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Audrey?
Hi, my name is Audrey Bradley. I'm the presenter today. I'm going to be introducing you to QuickBooks. Thank you so much to the Prep Institute and Black Tech Link for having me on. I'm looking forward to sharing. I know we're going to dive more into the detail later on, but thank you so much for all being here. I think you're on mute, Elizabeth.
Sorry. Good old Zoom. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen right now. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. So this is the first workshop in a 6-part series. The first couple of workshops are going to focus on financial management. This is part 1, where Audrey will go over QuickBooks Essentials, and then just the basics. And then in the next couple of weeks, we'll dive a little bit deeper in financial management part 2, which will be on May 2nd. And Natasha shared a little bit about Project Most. And she mentioned, the purpose of Project Minority-Owned Support and Technical Assistance is to support small nonprofits and minority-owned businesses on a county-wide basis to attain sustainability and to achieve business growth by providing supportive services in the form of trainings like the one you guys are a part of today, as well as technical assistance in which Natasha, the Prep Institute, will provide. And our goal is to reduce the barriers to business success. These are our program partners. This is produced by the County of San Diego. It's a contract underneath the County of San Diego Health and Human Services Agency. Tell you a little bit about Black Tech Link. We're a nonprofit that started in 2020, focusing on the San Diego. Our mission is to focus on the economic development of Black communities by providing workforce solutions, technical training, and networking opportunities. Another one of our partners who's helping us promote the event is also Rise San Diego. Many of you guys may or may not be familiar with, but they're a great nonprofit organization that also helps small businesses and nonprofits in San Diego County as well. And the Prep Institute, in collaboration with governments, philanthropists, and investors, they deliver long-term continuous business growth training to small nonprofits and small businesses. And then they also provide continuous training for 3 to 5 years to help with business growth. As I mentioned, this is the first workshop in long line of workshops that will be coming out leading until the end of June. The first workshops will focus on financial growth. In May, they'll focus on customer growth. And then in June, they'll focus on growth marketing. And the whole idea behind these workshop series is to help your business grow or nonprofit grow. We're going to have there'll be virtual workshops, again, like this, a lunch and learn from 11:30 to 1. They're bi-weekly. If you're unable, if you have missed one, it's okay. You can jump right in. And then these workshops will also be provided at a later date. And Audrey went ahead and introduced herself. Did you want to share anything else about your background?
Sure. I know there was a slide, so I didn't want to say too much starting off, but I've been working in accounting in various formats and different positions for about 15 years overall. got my bachelor's degree in accounting, went straight into corporate for about 10 years. And for the past 5 years, most recently, I've been helping small business owners, myself included, now that I'm a small business, manage their financials and just get everything in order so that they have a smooth tax season, that they know their numbers and they know how to grow and sustain their business.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. And also, we want to hear from you all. So please, please share information about where you're calling from, what company you're with, just so we can learn a little bit about you, and you can share that in the chat. So before we get started today, we're going to take a quick survey. I'll give you guys a couple minutes. And we just really want to know, like, this training is going to focus on QuickBooks, and I just want to see, like, how many have used QuickBooks in the past. What's your familiarity with QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop? I know when I started doing accounting work, long before I started my nonprofit organization, I used to be like a bookkeeper myself, and working with a lot of small businesses, they utilize the QuickBooks Desktop. And now things are a lot more robust and there's QuickBooks Online. But I just want to see, like, how many have used QuickBooks in the past or have not used QuickBooks in the past. Please feel free to go to this link. Let me go here. I'm going to put the link in the chat. All right. And did everyone receive the link okay? Awesome. I'm going to stop my share really quickly.
Elizabeth, I think someone in the chat said they did not receive the link.
Okay. Let's see. I put the link in the chat right now. Oh, I'm sorry. It's going only to the host and the panelists. Good call. There we go. So please let me know if you received it okay. I'm gonna take a couple minutes. And perfect. Thank you, Dr. Lawana. Let's me so this is what the question that we're asking, how many of you have used or are currently using QuickBooks Online? Let us know if you're a new user, you've used QuickBooks for some time. If you've never used QuickBooks before, like I said in the past, you've used QuickBooks Desktop, or you use another accounting software, we want to know. And we're going to give it about 1 more minute. Let me know also if you have issues accessing the quick question. Let's see. We're getting some results in. I'm going to share my screen.
While we're waiting for that, I saw a question about videos and recordings. We will have the recordings available for those who cannot attend the future workshops.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, we're getting some results in. Let's see. So 38% of you have never used QuickBooks Online. And a lot of you are new or current users, okay? A lot of you have been using QuickBooks for some time. Some of you only use QuickBooks Desktop. No one uses another online accounting software?
I saw in the chat Anne Marie uses FreshBooks.
Okay. Perfect. FreshBooks is a great one too. All right. Well, Audrey, you do have a pulse on the crowd. Hopefully that you'll be able to tailor your workshop a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let me go back. All right. Thank you for everyone for taking that quick survey.
What is a shoebox? I saw someone say they use a shoebox.
Shoebox full of
Accounting.
receipts.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
so old school.
That's right. I use I keep all of my receipts in a don't judge me, but in a bag, right? And I go through them at the end of each month, each year, each quarter. But hopefully Audrey will show us some ways to simplify the process here.
Yes, absolutely.
So Audrey, I'm gonna let you take it from here. Floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. So I'm going to jump right in. Again, QuickBooks is not the only accounting system. As we've already seen mentioned, there's FreshBooks, there's also Wave, there's also Xero. So there's a lot of different softwares out there. Myself, I've worked mostly in QuickBooks. I started in desktop and then, of course, transitioned to QuickBooks Online when that was offered. And now that as I'm working remotely, a lot of times I found it a lot easier to use. So some of the reasons why I would recommend using an online accounting system are just the accessibility, real-time updates, meaning when I was working QuickBooks Desktop, I was having to log in remotely and no one else could use the computer at the same time. So I was working with someone in Georgia. I would have to wait until 5 p.m. when she logged off to actually start my work for the day. And, we don't really jump into business for ourselves to work all night long, which was what I was doing. So QuickBooks Online allows me to actually jump in, not mess up her work, but we're both able, the owner and I, to work at the same time and make sure our jobs get done in a timely manner during office hours. And part of that is collaboration and then also variety. So many different features that QuickBooks offers, not only the balance sheet, the profit and loss, at attaching receipts is definitely an option. I'll make a note to mention that as we get to that portion of the presentation. And then the variation. Online accounting systems often integrate with whether you use Shopify, Etsy, PayPal. I mean, name a different POS and it probably has an integration. And a lot of the other software that were mentioned, they might be coming along with that integration, but they aren't as advanced as QuickBooks Online and offering integrations with all the different features. And I believe if you go to the next screen, Elizabeth, there are a few more. Perfect. Security. Yes. So I was working with a client. She was transitioning from QuickBooks Desktop into QuickBooks Online. And unfortunately, her laptop was snatched out of her car. And thankfully, she had a backup in place in the cloud. But with the other systems, if they're all online, awesome. But if they are on your laptop or on your desktop and that desktop gets struck by lightning or goes down for the last time, you get that blue screen of death that I see sometimes. It kind of freaks you out if that's your only software. So with QuickBooks Online, you're able to log on remotely using a new laptop, an old laptop, and QuickBooks does have security protocols in place, such as authentication processes to make sure that it is you signing in and no one else can access that. And a few of the other scalability, analytics, and reporting, which we will definitely mention and go into. And then backup and disaster recovery. Again, touching briefly on that client that lost her laptop. None of us want to be in that position, and QuickBooks Online allows you the variety and the backup to avoid any disasters in that area. So I believe the next screen goes over what the 4 different topics. Oh, okay. It actually mentions the other software. So as I mentioned, you have QuickBooks, you have Xero, Wave, and then we also had mention of FreshBooks. They're all different accounting systems that I've worked with briefly at some point or another. I'm sure there are others that I haven't worked with that I didn't mention, But while QuickBooks is the one that we are focusing on today, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware there are a lot of different options out there for you. So what I'm going to be covering today is the account setup. I think 38% said they had never worked with QuickBooks Online. So I'm going to take you straight from the beginning. When you first log into your QuickBooks Online account, show you how to set up your account for success, make it easy to actually start invoicing and receiving money. And then I'm actually going to show you the bank feed, how transactions get fed in from your bank account, how you handle those transactions. Invoicing, we're actually going to create an invoice, and I'll show you how you can actually email out an invoice and the different options that you are actually able to receive payments for. And then reporting, I believe this is kind of like a build up. So everyone mentioned that there was a very high degree that they want to increase their knowledge and understanding of proper management skills and financial controls. And a lot of times that's how you do it, downloading reports for how your business did, whether that was last year compared to this year, last month compared to this month, and then you're also able to forecast. If you know how well you did in 2023, and we just finished Q1 of 2024, you can kind of compare and see, are we doing better or worse than last year? And so those reports are one of the ways that you're able to gain more knowledge about your business, increase your financial controls, and properly manage your business. So I believe if I can share my screen, I'm going to jump right in. Okay, if you can in the chat, I think I lost the chat, but if you can in the chat, let me know if you're able to see my screen. Well, I'm gonna minimize the chat for the moment. So let me know, and Elizabeth and Natasha, if you could let me know if there are any questions or if there is anyone that can't see my screen. But for right now, when you first log into QuickBooks, this is what you're going to see. It's going to take you to your dashboard, and the goal of the dashboard is kind of give you a brief overview of your account, how it's doing. When you first set up the account, there won't be a lot of information or activity. I've been in here in preparation for today, so I've been adding bank accounts like you see down here. But if you scroll down a little bit, you're able to get a quick glimpse of how your business is doing. So once you have information coming in, once you are managing your bank feed, you're able to see how well you did last month, or you can change and look at the quarter, this year, last quarter, and those different information. And it's just a quick way for you to kind of get a pulse on your business. You can see what invoices you have unpaid. You can see which invoices were paid in the last 30 days and different information like that. Specific to getting your account set up, over here, next to the blue dot, you have the settings feature. So if you click on this, it's going to open up a bunch of different menu options. Right now, we're going to focus on your company and getting your account and your settings organized. So you'll go here, you'll click on account and settings. And as that loads, one thing I'll mention with QuickBooks, the first 30 days really give you an opportunity to test out the software, see if you like it, try it out. And then after that first 30 days, you will start the subscription. They'll ask you to enter your payment information. And then if you like it, you can continue, you can enter that subscription. If it wasn't for you, then, no harm, no foul. You're able to back out and move into something else that maybe benefits you a bit more. So here we have your accountant settings, different menu option here. But I'll start off right here with the company name. Now I call this Project Most because that's the current project that we were in. But under here, your company type is really where I want to highlight. There are different options. So for nonprofits, I know we have nonprofits signed up. You would actually choose the nonprofit organization. If you're just starting out as a sole proprietor, which is where most business owners start out, you're just going to choose that option. But as you can see, you also can do a partnership. You can do a small corporation. You can do a corporation with multiple shareholders, a limited liability. And if you don't really know what to define yourself as, you can always pick not sure, other, or none. And that just really changes the format of QuickBooks Online. So if I can briefly for the nonprofits show you what I mean. If you click on nonprofits and save, when you log out, or not log out, but when you hit exit, the actual reports, and I don't mean to skip ahead, but the actual report should change. Because nonprofits have, you are a nonprofit. So you have for-profit and you have nonprofit businesses, nonprofits. Your reports are to actually reflect the status of your accounts. And that's why the actual reports change. And I will change this back. I just want to make sure so that it reflects. And I want to touch both. So some that I talk about will actually cover nonprofits, and some will address for-profit businesses as I go through the actual discussion. Well, QuickBooks is taking a while to update, so I'll switch it back for now and keep moving. But for nonprofits, just know that, for example, your clients won't be clients, they'll actually be donors or making donations. So that format changes when you update your account setting in QuickBooks. For now, let's switch it back to sole proprietor and keep it moving. Okay, so once you have your account settings set up, as far as what tax form you have, I believe it's under advanced. You can also complete your fiscal year. So again, for nonprofits, a lot of the nonprofits I work with, their fiscal year starts in July and ends in June. Or if, say you follow the school year and it starts in August and it ends in July or June or May, whenever school gets out. It's been a bit since I've been in school, so I don't remember exactly, but maybe you just follow the school year. So you're able to log in and change this. You're able to go, and if you start in July, you can start in July and you just hit save, and then suddenly QuickBooks will track all the reports based on your fiscal year starting with July. And then the accounting method it's more handled as far as their taxes when they're filed, but just know that most businesses start off as a cash method. Accrual, you can leave it as accrual, it doesn't hurt, but cash just means you receive what you receive in 2023, you paid out what you paid out in 2023, and you aren't carrying over or you aren't withholding any reporting in order to manage your taxes. So that's where it really comes into play, the accounting method here. So before I move on to anything else, there's a lot I can cover. I just don't want to go over everything and run short on time here. So if anyone has any questions about the settings, about I can go over usage. Let me pull up the chat.
I think there was a question.
Samara, which plan is this? So I have this set up, I believe it's on advanced. Go. Oh, QuickBooks Online Plus. As we get into the settings, I also wanted to cover classes. So I didn't start with the basic level. So because there were nonprofits and I believe also construction included in this, what would a single member LLC count? Oh, so whichever plan is necessary for your business is the one you would select. So let's say you're just starting out, you just need basics, you just need to send out invoices. Then you would start with their simple start, which I believe is $30 a month. But as you get more, as you grow more, and as you use different features, for example, if you use classes or if you're in construction and you want to use projects, the plans do go up from there. So you start with simple start QuickBooks, you start with essentials, QuickBooks Online Plus, and then QuickBooks Advanced is the highest.
Mhm.
Remodel.
There's another question too. Do you check limited liability or sole proprietor? what would a single member LLC count as their plans? Do you check limited liability or solo entrepreneur?
So you, oh, sorry, it moved again. So you would select limited liability if you are an LLC. But as far as the plan, if you are just starting out and you were getting that limited liability just to make that liability as small as possible for you as the business, you would still be possible to start with a simple start or the essentials. So it's two different like selections. You would still check that you're the limited liability, but you could go into the simple start plan and start at the lower payment subscription. Thank you for pointing that out.
And
I'm
then there's
sorry,
a
Carol?
question, nonprofits also have income from other sources than donors, i.e. grants.
Mhm.
Where is that accounted for?
That is accounted for. So I'll show you when we get to the bank feed how you actually categorize that, but that's accounted for on your financial reports. So on what would be the profit and loss for a business, you would list out restricted income and then you would list unrestricted income. And that would be on the income statement where it shows your income and your expenses. So I believe that's at the end of, can you still get reports or spend? Yes, so the basic reports, balance sheet, profit and loss are always in those four I selected. If you have self-employed, it does not have a balance sheet. That's the only QuickBooks I do not recommend anyone start with simply because it doesn't have that feature. But Simple Start Essentials, you have your balance sheet, you have your profit and loss. Some of the other ones like your profit and loss by class might not be in the Simple Start or Essentials because the class feature is not an option in that lower level subscription. And before we missed, I was trying to get to Carolyn. You asked as far as designing everything, remodels, renovations, and project management. So you would probably start around the QuickBooks Online Plus if you want to track that project detail and make sure each project is actually profitable. You can start out, if it's not a ton of projects, you can start out with the lower level subscriptions, but that's ideally if you're going to start tracking that project management services and make sure each project is profitable, I would recommend the QuickBooks Online Plus for you. So before we leave accountant settings, I just wanted to pause and thank you so much for the engagement. Please keep those questions coming. I do want to go into the advanced and show you exactly how to add track classes or track locations. So I believe Carolyn, let's say, I don't know if your projects are address dependent, but let's say maybe one project is at 101 Smart Plan and the other project is at 202 Smart Plan. You could track it by classes or you could track it by classes. And a lot of times I will use this for nonprofit organizations because for nonprofits, you have a lot of different projects or not projects, programs, or a lot of different streams of revenue that you're mentioning, like the individual mentioned grants. So if you're tracking a grant, you want to be able to track exactly where that grant, how much came in, and then where exactly those funds were spent, for example. So let's say you received a $1 million grant, you would use classes to track that grant, and then you would show exactly, okay, these expenses, anything assigned to that class for that specific grant, and then you can run a actual report, profit and loss by class for that grant specifically, so that when you go back to reapply for that grant, or if you just for yourself internally want to make sure that it's being managed properly, you're able to run a report and make sure exactly where those expenses are hitting. And QuickBooks will remind you, as it just did me, that I forgot to save before moving on. Which helps. So many times I do something and I'm like, I just did that. Then I think I'm crazy, but it's because I forgot to save it. User error still happens. So you see there's limited liability company. It's just the tax form company type. Or sole proprietor. Okay, so moving into the transactions. On this left side menu, I don't want to skip and just on this left side menu is kind of your navigation of in and around QuickBooks. So we started out on the dashboard, and then we're just moving down one into the actual transactions to see the bank transactions. And then I'll walk you through how you actually assign income or assign an expense and how you create an account and what that looks like. So I pulled in a few just example transactions just so you can see. When you go to this account for the first time, you can see exactly if you have your bank account connected, and you should have a business bank account set up for your business. I always recommend whenever you start an organization, an actual business, treat it like it's going to be around for a very long time. Start with the end goal in mind. So if you don't have a business bank account, I highly recommend just setting one up. But once you do have that account set up, you're able to connect it to QuickBooks. So I imported this one and I created this one. But if you were linking an account for the first time, you would go over here to this feature link account. And then QuickBooks is going to open up and ask you which account do you want to connect? So I have Chase already connected, but if you have Bank of America, if you have Wells Fargo, and if you have a bank that doesn't show up, let's say American Express. Just type it in the search feature and see if it pulls up. And I used American Express because it always pulls up multiple URLs. I don't know why, but if you have a bank that has multiple URLs, you just want to select the one that you use to sign into. And by URL, I mean this smaller format right here, americanexpress.com. So depending on which login, maybe you have SkyMiles or maybe you have the corporate or personal credit card. If you try to log into Delta, but you have this login, it won't let you. So just make sure that the screen looks familiar when you go to log in. So you would click on this and then QuickBooks would open up and actually have you log into your American Express or whichever bank or credit card that you are attempting to connect in QuickBooks. And then once it's connected, QuickBooks will have you select an actual account. And unfortunately, I can't show that today because no one wants to put their personal information that detailed out there. So I'm not going to log into anyone's bank account and actually show you that portion. But that's what you would do. You would select your business bank account, and then QuickBooks would take you back here, and it would do a little circle, waiting, and then it would download your transactions, and you would come back to this screen here. So once your bank is connected, it's going to import transactions every time whether it's a debit card, a check that you pay, a check that you deposit, any activity in the bank account is going to trigger it to be sent and imported into QuickBooks Online. It's one of those integrations that we talked about. So in this case, there's, as you can see, 1,800 transactions, which is a lot, but I was like, it's always better to have more examples than too few examples. So when you first get, let's say it's income based, we'll use Shopify, right? And Shopify is another actual software you can integrate. But let's say you, received Shopify income. You're going to want to recognize who sent you the money. So if it's a customer, go ahead and type their name, click add, and it's going to pop up this little box here. And then just hit save. If you have all the information and you want to put that in, you can. Like if you have their email address, their phone number, but this is Shopify. We're just going to keep it basic. And you can, I have seen it where you don't attach it to a name, but I always like to know who pays me. That way I can track who has not paid me. So I always recommend at least putting the name. And then let's see, Shopify. So that's probably going to be more of a sales feature. I haven't seen a nonprofit that uses Shopify, but I'm sure there's one out there. But for Shopify, let's say you sold some goods. When you go to categorize, which is this account here, QuickBooks will a lot of time, even if it's a brand new account, have some income account listed. So you can use sales, which is already there, already available. You can use sales of product income. If you look to the left, it shows you it's an income account. So you can use that one, or you can create, let's say you sold pottery. And you want to track how much pottery you sell through Shopify. So you can add a new account. And so this is what it looks like. So under account type, it's going to ask you to select the account type, and it automatically goes to bank. Starting out, so you're just going to want to scroll down and choose the income account, because in this case it is income. And then under account type, you actually have detail type. In this case, it's not nonprofit income. We've already established it's for pottery, which is a sale of product income. So you would go ahead and select that one. And as you can see, QuickBooks ever so helpfully remove the name pottery. And once you have that where you want it to be, you just hit save and close. And so now we have the customer entered as Shopify, and then we have the account entered as pottery. And this feature, remember that class that we turned on, is how we would track class. So let's say this company not only wanted to track pottery, but we also wanted to track the class and say, okay, this was product versus this was a service. So you can type and then click add. So there is a section in QuickBooks where you can actually go and add all the classes if you know them ahead of time. But I always like the feature of, as you are going, you could just automatically add it, hit save, and then continue. So before we hit add and finish off this transaction, again, we have the name, who paid you, Shopify. The account is going to is pottery, and then the class is product. And then you would simply hit add. If that makes sense, do I have any questions on that? Let me open the chat again. Why are the numbers different? Bank versus QuickBooks, how do I fix that? Okay, so the numbers are different for, there's always a delay. So what happens at the bank, let's say on Monday, is usually going to be updated on Tuesday in QuickBooks. And depending on the account, Amex, I know, takes a really long time. Credit cards can take a little longer to update. I don't know if you ever log into your banking, you see that pending activity, like it hasn't actually posted, but you know you don't have the money because that rent payment is pending. So you can't go to Freddy's or wherever you want to go. So that's one of the reasons why the numbers will be different. Another reason why the numbers are different is sometimes, whether it's a QuickBooks error or a bank error, there might be a duplicate, and whether it's an income or duplicate expense added in to QuickBooks. So let's say you connected this Chase checking account twice and you imported the same transactions. Well, all of a sudden you're going to duplicate in QuickBooks. It's going to show twice as much as what the bank actually has. And obviously that's wrong. And that's one of the indicators that something is wrong, because the bank balance will show you have $100,000. And then QuickBooks will say you have $200,000. And you're like, woo! And so you get the bank statement and then you're like, oh, no, there's a problem. So what I always recommend for business owners, or if you have a bookkeeper doing it, that's what the bank statement is for. Each month for my clients, I'm going in and I'm reconciling to clear up any differences. So that's why why the numbers are different. And then how to fix it, another reason, all these pending transactions, this 1,800 is another reason it's off. So if any transactions are in your bank feed, then QuickBooks is not accounting for that, is not including that in the total. So anything, whether it's a expense or it's an income, if you have transactions in the bank feed, I wouldn't go by based on that number. I wouldn't look at, oh, it has 19,000, QuickBooks says 21,000, there's a problem. First, you have to go through and you would categorize all of these transactions. And then if it's still off, the next step would be reconciling and making sure the bank statement agrees with what QuickBooks have, because the actual record is your bank. You know, it doesn't matter if QuickBooks says you have $200,000. Don't try and take out 200,000 from your bank, because your bank's like, no, you only have $100,000. So your bank statement is what's going to tell you what's true, what's accurate, and what you actually have in the account. And then I actually have seen it in reverse, where QuickBooks has less and then your bank shows more, because if you write checks out of QuickBooks, which is not something I see a lot today, because there was a time a few years ago when people would actually print checks, like you would print a physical check that needs to be presented at the bank, right? So a lot of times now we're using ACH deposits or credit card payments, and it's almost instantaneously withdrawn. But if you have any checks written out of QuickBooks, then QuickBooks account is going to show, okay, you have a check for 15,000 pending, or you have a check for 2,000 pending. And that balance is going to be reduced by that outstanding check, because it hasn't hit your bank account yet, but it has been withdrawn from your account in QuickBooks. So I've seen it both ways, and I think that's three reasons at least why the numbers are different. Is there a separate plan you need to have for paying contractors, or does Essentials and Basic plan offer that? It is a separate plan that QuickBooks actually offers. I believe contractors, with the Essentials or Simple Start plan, you are able to pay contractors, which is found under the payroll menu. And I believe it's $5 per contractor, but you are able to pay them directly out of QuickBooks. And so it's kind of its own billing plan. So you would have the $30 a month for the Essentials, and then depending on how many contractors you have and pay. Like if you have 20 contractors, it's not going to charge you $5 per contractor unless you paid them all in that month. So it's kind of a nice way that they aren't going to charge you unless you use that feature, but it is possible, yes. Again, thank you so much for the questions. Let's see.
So Audrey, before you continue, there's two more questions at the top. Does your program offer office hours? That's one question.
Does the Project Most offer office hours?
Yeah, Amelia, if you could kind of clarify what your question is there. Are you asking to work directly with Audrey, or let us know in the chat? And also there's another question. What if you have multiple businesses, 2 to 3 different core businesses, such as consulting, web development, under one single member? Is QuickBooks able to display the different accountings? You see that question?
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. That's a great question, Nancy. So it depends on how the businesses are set up. If you have 2 or 3 different businesses and they each have their own EIN, their own tax ID number, then I would recommend that you set up a separate QuickBooks Online account for each individual company. Because when you go to file taxes, it's basically the same as commingling as an owner. You don't want those 3 businesses commingled under one tax ID number or one QuickBooks company. I have seen it done. The owner was trying to save money, so he put it all under one, and then he used classes to track the individual companies. So that's one way, but you have to be very on top of your financials, very organized. And, it's one of those you would hate to do at the end of the year, or, 5 days before you have to do a tax filing, because it's all mixed together. So the best way to set yourself up for success on that, I'll be right back with you, Amelia. I don't want to, sorry.
I want to jump in really quickly also. So when you also start a account or with QuickBooks, I think QuickBooks, like Business Center, they also authenticate your EIN and check your background. And they do that also if you're looking to receive funds or payments through QuickBooks. You know,
Yes.
so they do a background check for you to receive QuickBooks through payment that will go automatically to your bank account. Like if you send an invoice through QuickBooks, you know, um, QuickBooks is going to do their background check before they just allow you to start receiving money from customers.
Right, yes. So Nancy, just to finish off, I would recommend you can, like I said, you can, but it's not something I would recommend. I would recommend just starting each company off at that lowest possible simple start subscription plan. And then I did say if they're all different tax ID numbers. So let's say that it's just one business, but you just offer different service levels. Like maybe you offer consulting, you will offer web development, and then you offer something else as a third option, but they're all under one EIN, one tax ID number. Then you could simply set it up like I did that Shopify entry, and you could simply track it that way. Oh, went the wrong direction with that. And you could simply say, okay, lead delivery paid me for consulting, Jumpstart paid me for web development, and then those different income sources, as you create that different income account, would track it all under one company. So if it's different tax ID numbers, I recommend different quick QBO companies. If it's one tax ID number, but different service offerings, then you can track it under one.
And Amelia, yes,
Go
Audrey
back to
does offer office hours. Everyone, one of the benefits of Project Most to the county is that they want us to actually work with small businesses offering different services and use this as an opportunity to help them grow. And Audrey is one of the small businesses that we're presenting to you all as an opportunity to connect with her and utilize her bookkeeping and accounting services.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So at the end, I'll post my contact information, and you can, if Amelia, you can reach out and we can schedule a time to get together and discuss anything you'd like to. Yes. I offer a free consult for the first 30 minutes. Okay. I'm going to continue. I'm going to switch over to your chart of accounts, which is getting a bit more technical, but I do want to highlight specifically for nonprofits that restricted income. So this is the chart of accounts, just meaning that every activity that happens, whether it's income or an expense, you need to assign it like we just did on that bank fee, correct? So the account type will be listed. This is cash, for example, it's a bank account. Accounts receivable, the account type is accounts receivable, meaning someone owes you money. And then you have other assets. Accounts payable is obviously when you owe somebody else money. And then equity. So for for-profit businesses, the owner equity is money that you invest in the business. I know we all start out and we wish we could, start out with a huge client paying us $1 million, but a lot of times we have to put some sweat equity, some of our own money, some of our own funds into the business just to get it established, to turn the lights on, to buy the proper software, or, et cetera, right? So the equity tracks what you personally invested in the business. So and let's say that you had to go buy a new computer, correct? My desktop computer wasn't sufficient. It was super slow. It was still on dial-up. So I went and bought the newest Apple laptop, Macintosh, I believe. Hopefully those are the same company. So that's something that you paid for with your own money, because this is you starting out with the business, right? So you would keep that receipt, and then you would enter that as, and this is a journal entry, but you would enter that as owner's equity, meaning I paid 500 of my own funds in order to pay for this laptop. So back to nonprofits. So for your income, I mentioned earlier about the restricted. So if you receive money, let's say let's say it's Meals on Wheels, and they want to deliver meals, and they received a grant for a Pacific development, live oak development in San Diego. So that grant is restricted to only fund meals for that one live oak community in San Diego. Doesn't matter if Sacramento also has a live oak community. The grant is actually structured to make sure everyone in San Diego and the live oak community receives those funds. So you're going to separate that into its own separate restricted program funding. So when you receive that grant, you actually receive it. And when you code it, you say, okay, these funds were received for this restricted reason only. And again, it shows up on the profit and loss, but you would also assign it as a class. So let me go back and show you what that looks like. So this is the menu bar at the top. As you can see, there's bank transactions, chart of accounts. I will touch on receipts before we leave here because it's a very awesome, easy feature. Okay. So I'm just going to pick a random one. Let's say lead delivery is only for that specific live oak community, right? It's a restricted income for a nonprofit. So you still want to track lead delivery. Just add them as a customer. And again, QuickBooks tries to be helpful. It tries to recommend, oh, I see this as income. Let's put it to sales. So don't necessarily go by what QuickBooks recommends. In this case, we're going to use programs. Again, it's for a restricted purpose. And then the class, if you don't already have a class set up, I think we just did pottery. Oh, product for something else. So let's say Live Oak Meals on Wheels. So lead delivery paid you $1,060 to deliver Meals on Wheels to Live Oak. So that's the incoming income. You're going to assign that to the class. So click Add. Okay, and then let me find an expense. And so received, obviously income received, and then this spent column. Take your time, QuickBooks, absolutely. And if you are new to QuickBooks for the first time, don't be afraid to play around. I haven't yet to break QuickBooks Online. I've been working in it for 10 plus years. So if I haven't managed to break it, don't worry. Just play around, see what happens. You can always edit or undo. So let's say, and forgive the transaction. I know it says Shopify, but let's say that we paid so-and-so $881 to deliver those Meals on Wheels. I believe it's a volunteer program, but just so I can show. Oh, that's cool. We're gonna pay Jimmy John's to deliver Meals on Wheels to Live Oak. So Jimmy John is the vendor. Meals is what he's delivering. And then he is delivering for the Live Oak Meals on Wheels. And because he is delivering to that community, it falls within the parameters of the grant. So it's okay that we're paying him for this money. And before I hit add, I also want to mention another reason I always recommend adding not only the customer, but the vendor name. So we paid Jimmy John $881. The IRS requires anyone you pay over $600 in the year, and I know I don't want to confuse you with fiscal year versus calendar year, but in the calendar year, January through December, if you pay someone $600 or more, the IRS requires that you send them a 1099. There are some rules around that, like if it's a government, if it's another nonprofit, then they don't receive one if they're a corporation and things like that. But just to keep it easy for everyone, if you pay Jimmy John $800, that's more than $600. Just, I don't know, take a note, remind yourself, get what's called a W-9. It's a tax form. Get a W-9 from Jimmy John before you pay him. Because it's always easier to ask for what you need before you pay them, with the check still hanging over their head, versus after Jimmy John gets his money, because then he's less likely to respond because he gets busy with other work and other jobs, and it's just not as important. But if you hold his check with one hand and the W-9 form to fill out in the other hand and just wave it at him, and just be like, hey, you get this, and you give me this W-9, just ask for a W-9. Sorry. So Jimmy John Meals Live Oak Meals on Wheels. Just want to add that. And then I'll show you later on the reports what that actually looks like. So you're going to have to wait. But as I mentioned before we move on from transactions, if you go over here to receipts, so a feature that QuickBooks offers that I love, you are able to attach receipts. Now, when I first started out, I was like, I'm a bookkeeper. I'm going to save all my receipts, keep them safe and secure. And then I came back to them like 2 months later and the paper had faded. Like I kept my receipts, but the actual writing was non-existent. So what I love is you're able to take a picture, you're able to upload a PDF, and there's 3 different ways. You can upload from your computer, you can save it to G Drive, and you can upload it from there, or you can forward it from your email. So just for brevity, I'm going to click on this one, the upload from computer. This receipt is saved in my downloads, this $50 receipt from Uline. And it pops up in QuickBooks. And once it's in QuickBooks, process. Oh, we don't have 5 minutes. We're going to wait for you. But once it's in QuickBooks, you're actually able to attach it to the transaction. So $50 from Uline, when you see that come into the bank feed, give it time to work. You would find that specific expense. In this case, it's just $50, so there's not an actual expense for Uline. Come on, QuickBooks. You can do it.
So Audrey, while we're waiting, there's a question. Do they offer a service to file the 1099s for you in this plan, or do you have to sign up for a separate plan?
So 1099s is a service QuickBooks offers, but you pay separately for it. And it varies. Like there's an early bird payment, but I think the regular is $5 a form. But QuickBooks will actually send the IRS the 1099, and it will email the contractors the 1099 as well. So you're covered, but it is separate, and that's with any subscription. I don't think it gets higher. I think it's just $5 per form under any subscription. So I was looking for $50, but of course not. Anyway, I'm just going to open one to show you where you would attach it. So in that transaction, if you look at the bottom, let me move it up a bit. You'll see add attachment, create rule or exclude. So this add attachment will allow you to actually attach it to attach the receipt to the transaction. So I guess there's actually 4 ways. There's the 3 that we're showing under that receipt option, and then you can actually manually attach that to the transaction. And so once you add that transaction, if you go back to it at any time, that receipt is saved. So let's say the IRS comes back, and hopefully not, but let's say the IRS is like, hey, we don't believe you paid Jimmy John's $880. Well, you would go back to that transaction. You would click on that transaction. You would see the receipt where he had invoiced you for delivering those meals. And then you would download that and send that to the IRS and say, hey, here we are. We didn't cheat. We're all honest people here. Have a wonderful day. Then they leave you alone. Okay, and so next section we're going to cover is the invoicing. Let me go back to the chat and just check for any other questions. Do you still need to keep and upload receipts if you use a business credit card? Yes, you do. So the IRS, and again, I'm not tax certified, so I'm not able to give you tax advice, but as I was going through school, the IRS does not accept statements. It needs receipts, because if you look at a statement, the detail on a statement is a lot different than a receipt. For example, when I was working in corporate, they weren't allowed to take alcohol or receive alcohol. So we would check the actual receipt if they went out. Let's say they went to Papados, which is a restaurant in Texas. Let's say they went to Papados. We would check the actual receipt that has, okay, they bought the fish platter, they bought a sweet tea, and so on and so forth, versus the statement just shows Papados $50. So the detail is on the receipt, and so the IRS requires the receipt, not just the statement. I don't know. I like their platter here at Papados. Okay. Moving on, because I do want to make sure that we stay within the time limit. So for invoicing, again, going back to the menu, we've been at the dashboard, transactions. This next one is sales. Oh, and I'm sorry, in case I hit that too quick, it pops out and then you do overview, all sales, and then just click on invoicing. So I added an invoice here just so you can see if you are wanting to see, okay, what have I invoiced, or what's still outstanding, or what's paid. If you come here, it'll show you 4,600 unpaid, 0 paid in the last 30 days. If you want to go to a customer and add an invoice, there's multiple different ways. You can do it here. You can add a new customer and then add an invoice, or you can go most of the time to this new at the top, very top, under customers invoice. Like, I don't know how much you have time, but say you want to just send the client an invoice. You don't want to take 2, 3, 4 clicks and then wait for QuickBooks to update and get its act together. You just want to do the invoice. So I already put in a customer, but I'm going to add a new customer just so you can see. Okay, let's say. So let's say Meals on Wheels made a donation, made a pledge of, hey, we're going to pay you $2,000 to deliver to that community, that Live Oak community. And they want an invoice from you for their records. So you're able to add the customer, Meals on Wheels, and then you can also add the product or service. Now I added program. You can also track it by the hours. You can track sales. So for the for-profit businesses, if you are, it probably wouldn't be Meals on Wheels, but let's say you're selling John Smith, then you can add sales in whatever you're selling. You can put in the quantity, 5 at $20 or 5 at $200 or whatever like that. So it works for nonprofits and for-profit businesses. I was just keeping in the theme of the nonprofit for this example. But for the program, you would add in, okay, 2024 pledge. You can add detail. You don't have to, but I always try and think, if I come back to this a year later, what's going to help me remember what this is for? Because, we're busy, we move on. Don't ask me what I ate for breakfast yesterday. I wouldn't be able to tell you. So I always try and think, what description would be helpful for me to remember? What would be helpful for the customer? Because maybe they forgot that they made this pledge. So then you type in the amount. And what I love about QuickBooks, you're able to email it to the customer, and you're able to specify if you want them to pay via credit card or ACH. Now, credit cards with QuickBooks charge a 2.99%, I believe, which is basically 3%. QuickBooks is taking of your money. was that $60 and $2,000. So I always recommend for my clients to unselect and not accept credit card payments for especially large amounts, and do the bank transfer instead, because the bank transfer, QuickBooks charges 1% and then it caps out at $15. So for this invoice, right, 1% would be $20. I'm gonna get this right because I'm the bookkeeper, right? But there's no calculator right now. So let's say it's $20, 1%, but it caps at 15. So instead of keeping $20, it's only going to keep $15, and you get more money in your pocket, which is the goal of any business, for profit or not for profit. So just remember that you're able to select and choose exactly how the customer pays. And depending on the state you're in, let's say the customer only wants to pay with a credit card, you can, depending on the state you're in, because they do limit it, you can charge that credit card fee, call it a convenience fee or whatever. You can include that and increase the price by that much. And so this is how I'm adding convenience fee just so you can see product service information. If you have a SKU, if you get that detailed, if you have a specific category. I never use that, haven't used that in 10 years. I don't do inventory, so maybe that's where it'd be more useful. All I do is I add the name of the actual product or service that I'm providing, and then you list the account that you want that sale to be included in. So for convenience fees, I would actually do something like the bank fees, because that's the offset. And again, this is a new account we're setting up. So the account type, bank fee, is that an income or an expense? It's an expense. We don't get to keep bank fees. So you'll scroll down. And then the detail, again, advertising, auto, it's super helpful. Just read through and then choose the one that you think best fits whatever account that you are setting up. Save and close. Save and close. And then you can do that 0.03 for a credit card. And then the client is able to pay via credit card. And then if you do have the customer's email, you can also put mealsonwheels.org and then you can send it to them. And one way I always like to double check and make sure it actually sends like I want it to, you can BCC yourself in the email. So you can put whatever your email is. And that's just to make sure that the actual invoice goes out. I have had instances where a vendor or a customer tried to send an invoice and they thought it was sent and they were like, well, you haven't paid, and their client did not receive the invoice. Maybe they had this email address wrong and didn't realize that QuickBooks, it bounced back, or maybe something else happened and went to spam. But they're able to say, hey, no, I sent the invoice on this day. I can forward you what was sent. And then the client, if it's been 30 days, they're still accountable to make the payment. And they don't get an extra 30 days just because they didn't get the invoice, as they said. Any questions? Oh, I should go show you, Elizabeth mentioned that QuickBooks will ask for your tax ID when you set that up. So I'm sorry, before I check for questions. So it's again under your company, under account and settings. So whenever you're ready to start accepting payments, under payments, there's this QuickBooks payments. It allows you to get paid by card, ACH, I've never done Apple Pay, Venmo, and PayPal. And so the set up payments, as she mentioned, that they will go back and check your tax ID number. So I added some information in here just to show you. Obviously, it's not accurate and I am not submitting it, but it's going to ask for your legal business name, your business email, industry, business type, so on and so forth. Save and continue. The next section goes into text, social security number, as you, the business owner. Last form. And then this third section is, where do you want to deposit the money? So I actually had a client, I walked him through this, and then he was supposed to set up the bank account, because I was like, I'm not going to see that information, just go ahead and set it up. And he picked QuickBooks checking, and then the money was not deposited into his bank account. So again, just make sure as you're setting this up, which one you're selecting. So QuickBooks checking, it's a feature that QuickBooks offers. I don't really see the need if you already have a business account set up, but be sure and select add a bank account. And again, QuickBooks is going to have you log into that bank account. If you don't see it available, if you don't see it, again, just type in whatever your bank happens to be, find that URL, log in, and then select, if you have multiple, and usually whenever you open an account, you get checking and a savings account. So in this case, just check off the checking, select the checking account, so that's where the money is deposited. And then you would hit review and finish, and then QuickBooks is going to do that business verification check that they do. And if I haven't had a client get rejected for that, but if there is something wrong, maybe your tax ID number is wrong or some of the information is wrong, it'll come back and you'll just need to update that information. So as I mentioned, I'm not submitting that information. I just wanted you to see what it looks like. And now let me check for questions.
Audrey, there's a question. QuickBooks charges a fee for each invoice you send, even if it is a bank transfer. And where is PayPal integrated for invoicing?
Mm-hmm. Yes, QuickBooks charges a fee, whether it's a credit card or an ACH, because it comes out in a very nice format, but it will send your customer an email, hey, so-and-so, this business is requesting that you pay their invoice. And then they'll click on the link in the email. It'll open it up to view the invoice so that your client is able to review. Like, oh yeah, I remember she said she was going to send me an invoice. We're going to do that. And then they can pay. They can choose to pay, unless you limit it, they can choose to pay via credit card or ACH. And then either of those options comes with their own fee. Again, if it's high, the credit card is 2.99% and the ACH is 1%. So I always recommend the ACH. And then where is PayPal integrated? I don't know. I haven't used PayPal or Venmo. The only two options I've used are ACH or credit card. I have seen PayPal integrated as far as you can connect the PayPal bank, but in that case, the client was actually invoicing directly from PayPal. But as you know, PayPal holds onto your money until you make that manual transfer, or you can tell it, I believe, transfer at a certain balance dollar amount, but PayPal actually holds your money. So I have seen that you can attach it as an actual bank, and then those transfers are transfers, but the actual income is received into PayPal. But setting it up, as they mentioned, to pay via Venmo or PayPal, I haven't seen it. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so moving in.
Also jumping in, if you don't want to incur like the fees, there's also like a feature where you can pay by check, and they will like generate an invoice and then they'll just send it to your like mailing address, you know.
So something else that was a goal that I noticed as you filled out the form was assistance to grow and make the business sustainable, right? We don't want to save an exit. We don't want to start a business just to get to our golden crowning years at 45 or or 35 or whatever age that you choose to retire. And then the business is not there to sustain us. So one of the ways to check and make sure that you're on track to reach your goal of, hey, I want to make so much money and then retire, is to check your reports. So QuickBooks always has these 3 favorites saved at the top: accounts receivable, balance sheet, profit and loss. And by saving, I mean, if it's a favorite, if it's one that you view frequently, all you have to do is click on this little star. Like for, as I mentioned, if any of my clients are nonprofits, they're going to be looking at the profit and loss by class frequently. So you there it is. So you click on that and it'll pop it up to your favorites. So if you're looking at your accounts payable summary frequently, you can add that. If you're looking at your profit and loss, and I highly recommend you should at least once a month. So we'll start with your profit and loss. And the transactions I entered were from a few years old. So I'm just going to select all dates. That's the reporting period. You can just see how your business did for, again, a period of time. And one of the things I like to do, as I mentioned, 2023 has come and gone, 2022, however long you've been in business, whether that's been months, days, weeks, like how did I do on Monday compared to Wednesday, you can actually set the report to scale to that size. Now, I'm not going to do days, that would be really large and off the page, but let's do years. And if you are noticing the date, remember the fiscal year I put to July. So again, QuickBooks is going to run it based on that. You can also choose for for-profit businesses, January to December is probably more your year tracking that you want to compare to. So you can look and say, okay, in 2022, when I started, I made 4,600. Woo! 2023 was a bit slow, brought it down. But in 2024, I've already made the same income from January to April that I made in 2022. So you can look and see, okay, 2023 was slow. I took too many vacations, or, something else was wrong there. But in 2024, in Q1, I've already made what I made in 2022. So that shows progress. You're growing in the right track. And I should have done more expenses because it doesn't show a lot here. But we did the Meals on Wheels expense, right? For the $881.88. So always with the profit and loss, it's going to show your total income. It's going to show your total expenses, and then it's going to show your net income. And if it's a loss, it'll be in brackets and you can make it red, but ideally it's going to be an income. And then for nonprofits specifically, I know we did the restricted funding. Sorry.
You said ideally it's going to be income. Ideally.
That is the goal. Positive thinking. Yeah. So for nonprofits, again, we did that restricted income, and I put a few in here just so you can see it track. So that's how you're tracking. It's still listed under income, but you can see pottery is unrestricted, programs is restricted, and then you're actually tracking exactly who gave you what, how much, and then let me switch to the profit and loss by class. And again, this doesn't just apply to nonprofits. I know by class, I've seen a lot of construction companies do this as well. For example, they're working on multiple projects, or they're working on different income streams, like the one question we had that was consulting and development and so on and so forth. Oh, no. Sorry, can't talk and do both at the same time. Okay, so we only put the 2 classes, but we have Live Oak, Meals on Wheels, and then we have the product from that pottery income. So we had income of $1,060, and then we paid Jimmy John's $880. So now when we go back to Live Oak Meals on Wheels and say, hey, we want another grant because we used most of the funds that we gave you. And they ask, well, how did you use it? Was it administrative? Was it towards the actual mission that we gave it to you? We can show them, yeah, $881.88 to be exact, went towards the mission. So if you give us more, we can serve even more organizations or communities and make sure that they are fed. And that's how you track the grants. And then again, there are, let's see, Live Oak product. This could be a different grant name, but I just wanted to show for-profit businesses as well that they can use this. And then you have not specified. So anything not specified, if it's restricted, I would recommend, it being labeled under a grant, but in this case, I didn't do it. It should probably be up here, unrestricted, but non-specified just means we didn't label it as to a specific class. So if you just have one grant you want to track, that's fine. If you have 2 grants, you can add as many as you would like, and then you can run that profit and loss by class and be able to give them exactly what you spent the funds on and make sure that you are fiscally responsible. And it just allows you to grow, because let's say maybe you only spent $400 on the actual meals and 600 went to administrative. Well, you can see that, okay, we need to make a change. We're maybe spending too much on the administrative and not enough on the actual mission. And it helps you adjust and redefine your vision and make sure that you're spending things on the appropriate. And for-profit businesses as well. If you look at this and you're like, okay, great. We had $13.50 come in for pottery, and then, oh, we're able to just go to the backyard, dig up some clay, make some pottery, and it's all profit for us. Great. Versus maybe there's a ton of expenses in doing, I don't know, what's another arts and crafts one, wire, or those like metal frames, right? Maybe steel is super expensive and you made $90 to $100 on steel, and maybe you spent $10,000. So again, we didn't put a ton of transactions in the mix here, so there's not a lot to see. We didn't have time for all that. I apologize. But looking at your financial reports will give you an idea of where you're spending your money, and it lets you decide, is that where I want to spend my money, or maybe I should spend my money somewhere else. And then before the last report, and I'll look for questions, is your balance sheet. And so I added a few, I think I added the journal entry here. The balance sheet is kind of what tracks your financial stability. So let's say that you want to go to the bank and get a loan. Like, hey, I'm building homes. I don't have enough cash in pocket. I want to go take a loan so I can build a home and then sell it. So the bank is going to look at your balance sheet to see exactly how much money you owe other people, how much money you have in your account, and whether or not they think you're able to pay back whatever loan they decide to give out to you. So in this case, I did a few things wrong, just so you can see what not to do. So if you look here, cash is a negative 25,000, which I'm sure no bank is ever going to let you have a negative 25,000 balance. So before you present this balance sheet to the bank and say, hey, give me a loan, you're going to obviously want to correct that and make sure the actual balance is reflected. Again, I recommend, if it's monthly, quarterly, yearly, going in and reconciling your account. That's what cleans up your accounts, and that's what makes sure you have the accurate balances, especially on your balance sheet. So if they look at your AR, they're like, okay, well, does he expect to make any money? Oh, he has $25,000 that he's expecting people to pay him. So that's good, right? But then they look at their current liabilities. Again, offsetting, right? Like, how much do you make versus how much do you owe? So right now, this fake business owes $50,000. So if they look at how much cash you're expecting versus how much you owe other people, it kind of gives you an idea before you set it in front of a bank. Like, is he worth the investment? Do we think he's going to make enough money to give it back to us? So one of the reasons, again, to get something in place, it doesn't have to be QuickBooks Online, but some kind of accounting system in place, is to get that validity and being able to prepare and present financial reports that show, hey, I'm on track of my finances. I have all the numbers. I am super profitable. This is why you should either a grant or a loan. This is why you should give me money. And then retained earnings, again, under equity is just retained earnings is how much has the business taken in or put out over time. In this case, it's negative, but don't worry, this is a fake company I created, and I put it in the negative on purpose. But everybody else on this call is going to do great. Your retained earnings is going to be positive, and your net income is going to do way better than this company. Any questions?
Audrey, there's a question. When might you use tags instead of class?
I haven't used tags myself, but I have seen it used in the early, like simple start or essentials. So I believe tags is something that you can attach to a transaction. So instead of running the report by class, you can run the report by tags. But I haven't seen it used frequently enough or steadily enough to actually run a report and actually have that as a valid report. But I have seen the tags used indirectly. Or maybe you want to track a specific product line like that was used in one invoice or one expense. So I don't have as much familiarity or experience with tags as I do with classes. Oh, sorry, Linda, did you have a question? How can I see? Oh. Okay, I think it sounds like the question was answered. Awesome. Thanks, Linda.
She found
Okay.
it.
So I believe that wraps it up. Thank you so much for attending today. I know there's only 2 minutes. So again, thank you again for having me, Elizabeth and Natasha, and thank you for helping me with the chat and answering all the questions. Let me put my information. I will also put my information.
Yeah, and I'll share the screen. Give me one moment.
I'll stop share. And I'll put my information in the chat as well.
Yes, and so I know Audrey, she shared basic fundamentals of QuickBooks. There's a lot more like features that can be used. And on our next workshop on May 2nd, we'll go over some more of those features, dive a little bit more into reports, payroll, and then we'll also discuss some of the other features of some of the other apps that can be used for financial management and reporting. If you guys want to, on your own time, take a look at, some QuickBooks tutorials. These are some of the resources that you can use. Audrey mentioned in our call, like there's a website called TechSoup. If you go to TechSoup.com, Google TechSoup, they offer QuickBooks at a discounted rate for nonprofits. So if you're a nonprofit, you just want to, dive right in, I would suggest going to TechSoup and checking that out. Also, there's other tutorials on LinkedIn Learning, QuickBooks. QuickBooks also has its own tutorial. So if you just type in QuickBooks tutorial, they'll walk you through the steps on how to do certain things in QuickBooks. There's also paid tutorials such as Udemy and Coursera with different instructors. Each instructor has their own teaching style, so just find the one that best works for you. I really appreciate you, Audrey, today and just taking your time to kind of walk through. This is Audrey's contact information. I suggest this will be shared, but please feel free to reach out to Audrey if you have any questions. She's an amazing bookkeeper. She's my bookkeeper. And well, I say like I was literally like a hot mess like when I first started like doing my own financial like reporting, and I would go to like a tax preparer and they would just say, like, hey, where you're into your financials so we can file your taxes. And the first year I didn't even have it. And so, and it was just, Audrey came out of nowhere on LinkedIn, just messaged me like, hey, do you need a bookkeeper? And I was like, well, yes, I do. right on time, right? And so like we've just been rocking for the last 3 years. She's been doing a great job helping my tax preparer. And so I really appreciate you, Audrey, and I appreciate you providing your expertise, dropping gems, and sharing your knowledge to all of the small businesses and nonprofits that are on the call today. Again, our next workshop is May 2nd. And everyone, if you're still on the call, I just want to request if you guys can do a short survey and let us know how we did, right? Um, we definitely want to keep, these workshops going. Our workshops in June, but we want to have feedback on the instructors. We do have some upcoming instructors leading up to the end of June. But I'm gonna add this in the chat. Let me see.
Everybody, this survey is so important to the entire community. The County of San Diego is doing this training countywide for the first time in the last 5 to 7 years. And what they're really looking for is to learn from you of its value, of its benefits, of ways that we can improve our training towards you. So please, if you can take a moment, because it helps all of us, particularly helps us in how we communicate this valuable training to the county on your behalf. Thank you so much for taking the survey.
Awesome. Yeah, so if there are no more questions, please feel free to reach out to us, if you have any questions. I will actually put my email in the chat as well. You can also message Audrey directly. And I'll also follow up with everyone that signed up, and if you guys have any questions, just, respond back to the email. But again, I appreciate you taking your time. Hopefully you guys were able to snack on some food during this lunch and learn. And then yes, I look forward to seeing you all hopefully in a couple weeks on May 2nd, where Audrey will be diving even deeper into QuickBooks. So thank you again. You guys have a really great day.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you,
Thank
Elizabeth.
you. Thanks everyone for showing up and for your questions. Thank you.
So
Awesome.
Elizabeth and Audrey, can we stay on and chat?
Yeah.
Does this system work that way?
Yeah, hold on.